Carrier Bond, Fox News legal editor, Jonathan Turley, Fox News contributor, George Washington University law professor, and constitutional law attorney. Great to see you both, my guests for this period of our hour. District Attorney, liberal, Alvin Bragg, who ran as many Democrats in high legal positions across this country, ran threatening the freedom of Donald Trump. Lawfare became even a word that voters were using. Did Alvin Bragg, Jonathan, get what he wanted at all?
Oh, I think that he did. This is enormously popular with his base. This was a thrill kill, and this was the thrill. And ultimately, this court imposed no punishment at all, but did give Trump's critics what they wanted. That is to label him as a convicted felon. It's sentencing by soundbite. This is now going to be repeated like a mantra in the media as he takes his oath of office, that this is the first convicted felon to take the oath, even though this case may not last. I mean, the verdict against Trump has a very good chance of being overturned. The verdict against the New York legal system is going to be far more lasting. It allowed itself to be weaponized. It allowed itself to be the product of lawfare. And that's going to leave a much more lasting mark than I think this verdict on Trump.
Look, I knew that this was a thing. When I traveled to Georgia for that all-women town hall, Carrie, there were people using the word lawfare in conversations that I was having with voters. And it was resonating with them exactly what that was. So it wasn't just one of those hashtags. They said they knew what was going on against Trump.
And I'm looking at... I'm sorry, what?
You okay?
Okay.
Okay, we've lost audio
okay?
with her. Jonathan, would you like to fill in on that?
Yes. Well, I think that ultimately what you're going to come out of this case is a true mandate for Donald Trump. One of the greatest advantages that he had during this election was this trial. That is, when he was under this gag order and couldn't say anything, he said a great deal by walking out every day and facing the cameras. The public did not like it. This is the type of thing they see in other countries where the legal system has been weaponized against political opponents. And that did resonate with the public. They did view this case as lawfare. And this sentence will only increase that mandate. One of the priorities of Trump is to try to break the culture at the Department of Justice and the FBI that has been used so often over the last number of years, not just with this, but also the Russian conspiracy case. That's a hardened silo. That's the most difficult agency to reform. But this sentence gives him just that much more of a mandate to say that things have got to be changed here. It is a terrible moment for the New York legal system that it's come to this. I have great respect for the New York legal system. It was one of the premier systems in the world. And this is a really sad day for them, more than it is for President-elect Trump.
You know, it was interesting. I wrote down, as I often do, what you said. What comes out of this is a mandate for Trump. And the way I'm reading what you're saying, too, is that Alvin Bragg did something that a lot of politicians couldn't do on the trail. And that was unite people from different walks of life and even ideologies together around the idea of going after an American citizen who wants to lead the greatest country in the world with law that was bending to their favor at every turn. I mean, so he does have that political, I guess, check that he can mark, if that's what he was looking for. I want to know what it means real quickly, and let's bring back, because I think we've solved the audio issue here with Carrier Bond. Carrie, what does this mean for the American people? Let's talk about that. But also, first, what does it mean for Trump?
Hey, mainstream media, better tell the truth.
Well, as you're saying that, Trump supporters are walking by right now. They're holding signs about political persecution, about the weaponization of the Department of Justice, and their message is loud and clear. They are tired of this, and that's why they went to the ballot box in November and voted decisively for Donald Trump, which I thought was a very effective point that he made. At one point, he leaned forward on screen, looking at Judge Marchand and said, the people were watching the trial in your courtroom and they voted for me. It was decisive, the swing states, all of it. And, Andy McCarthy made this point in an earlier hour. Donald
Carrie,
Trump
excuse me 1 second. My team is telling me that we can, they're listening to you, so they've queued it up. Let's watch it together. This is the president-elect Donald Trump from his sentencing just a short time ago.
It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. And the people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in your courtroom. They got to see this firsthand, and then they voted, and I won and got the largest number of votes by far of any Republican candidate in history, and won, as you know, all 7 swing states, won conclusively all 7 swing states, and won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. And they've been watching your trial. And I think it's a disgrace to the system. I was under a gag order. I'm the first president in history that was under a gag order where I couldn't talk about aspects of the case that are very important. I guess I'm still under, so probably I won't do it now. I assume I'm still under a gag order. But the fact is that I'm totally innocent. I did nothing wrong. In the meantime, I won the election in a massive landslide, and the people of this country understand what's gone on. This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to explain that I was treated very, very unfairly. And I thank you very much.
Does that gag order still exist, Carrie?
I'm sorry, Harris, can you say that again?
Does the gag order still exist?
Well, that's a point that Donald Trump made. He says, it probably still does as I'm sitting here. But no, that would be over now that the case has that he's been sentenced. But Harris, going back to what we were talking about people being fed up with this lawfare, here's a sign that a person who sat in the trial, a local person, just handed to me. Look at that. Marchand Bragg,
to your
political
left a little
persecution.
Bit. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
See,
you got
these
it.
These are the kinds of signs that I'm looking at right now. People are handing these things to me. Look at this one. Marchand Bragg, thank you. You helped reelect President Trump. So this is the kind of sentiment that's being espoused right now outside the courtroom. They see through all of this. And as Donald Trump said, and I thought it was a very effective argument, he said, I'm sitting here because my accountant labeled legal expenses, and now I've been indicted. He also pointed out in the courtroom that a former top official from the Biden Department of Justice was sitting there because he had decided to take a severe career downgrade and go join up with Alvin Bragg and help him prosecute him. And so I think people are tired of this, as evident by the fact that there are only Trump supporters here outside the court today. There was no one else. There were lots of Trump flags. And I do think that Donald Trump may be vindicated on appeal. I think he has a real chance.
Jonathan, here's a question that I haven't heard answered recently. What happens now with Stormy Daniels, the former sex filmmaker who actually owes for legal expenses Donald Trump hundreds of thousands of dollars? When does she have to pay up?
Well, that's a subject of other courts to whether she will be compelled to make good on that debt. There's going to be a great deal of litigation. Well, she's required to pay the money, and I think that ultimately they're likely to pursue that. But they're going to have their hands full going forward. This case is likely to be on appeal for at least a couple of years. It's going to try to work its way towards the Supreme Court. For the Trump team, the important thing is to get out of the vortex that is the New York court system. Yeah. I mean, they have been really held there for a long time. They've taken what are called interlocutory or mid-trial types of appeals. Those appeals rarely work. They are disfavored, as we saw last night when the Supreme Court said, we're not going to suspend this sentencing. But now they have a chance to get out of the New York court system, ultimately go back to the United States Supreme Court. And this case is truly a peddler's wagon full of reversible error. I mean, it's hard to really pick what you want off that wagon in terms of reversing this case. But a couple of the most notable ones is that we still don't know what the jury decided. We don't know what they ruled in their verdict as to the motivation of what actually occurred. The judge said, look, you don't have to decide why he did these actions. You can pick from this menu, and you don't even have to tell us. Well, that shocked many of us, that the defendant and the public still does not know what the jury found as to the conduct of the next president.
Yeah, but the prosecution never cared about that. This was never about whether or not something that should be adjudicated will be adjudicated. This was about them and their political ambitions. And I don't think the 76 million plus voters, Jonathan and Carrie, ever had a doubt about that, which in part is why he's in office. Good to see you both. We are 9 days away from the inauguration. Thank you.